An experience titled A Priest Visited by Souls. Requesting Prayers recounts the story of Doug Lorick, a priest from Scottsdale, Arizona, who built a chapel dedicated to the souls in purgatory after being visited by these souls asking for his prayers. Father Doug Lorick, originally an Anglican priest who converted to Catholicism, now serves as the pastor of a large parish in Phoenix. He shared that God used extraordinary mystical experiences to guide him into becoming a devout and diligent Catholic. One of his primary devotions includes praying for the souls in purgatory, a practice that Protestants and other Christian denominations often reject. Protestants traditionally believe only in heaven and hell. The chapel, named the Holy Souls Oratory, translated as a chapel for the souls in purgatory, is a place of prayer for these souls. Father Lorick, now 77 years old, remains healthy and full of the Holy Spirit. He recounted being visited by souls over 10 times, some of whom appeared at his bedside while he slept. He regularly prays for these souls so that Jesus may deliver them from purgatory. From Anglican priest to Catholic shepherd, Father Lorick converted to Catholicism in 1984. He is married, with 4 children and 15 grandchildren. During his time serving at St. Andrew's Anglican Church in Nogales, near the Mexican border, he discovered the church was built over an ancient Native American burial ground. One day, while digging a dry well to dispose of water used for rinsing sacred vessels, workers unearthed several urns containing ashes. Father Lorick called the University of Arizona, which sent researchers to investigate. Meanwhile, Father Lorick had unusual experiences. He heard the creaking of pews as though people were sitting down and noticed the presence of an old man who seemed to follow him. When he called the previous priest to ask if he had similar experiences, the priest said he had not, but that his wife often saw the same Native American man. She mentioned that the man never harmed her, but appeared to follow her. A dream of the past. The night before the researchers arrived, Father Lorick had a dream. In it, he saw a barren hill and an old man carrying a sorrowful girl, about 8 or 9 years old, with long hair. When he woke, he wondered what it could mean. Later, archaeologists identified the remains of an old man and a young girl, belonging to the Las Trincheras Indians, who had lived over 1,000 years ago. Father Lorick believed the girl had died tragically, and the man, possibly her grandfather, had mourned her deeply. After the priest prayed for their souls, their presence disappeared. This experience revealed how even souls that had wandered for centuries could find peace through prayer. Father Lorick remains committed to his mission, offering prayers and intercessions for these souls, trusting in God's will and grace. Souls wandering for 1,000 years. There are souls that wander for centuries, even as long as 1,000 years. Yet, when Father Lorick prays for them, they find peace and cease to disturb others. A friend of Father Lorick once shared that Native American ancestors believed in having 2 souls, one that guarded the grave and another that returned to the Creator. Father Lorick is the author of the book A Father's Heart Rosary Meditation for Death. He recounted how someone from Wisconsin once sent him 1,300 prayer cards collected from various masses, each dedicated to praying for a different soul. From that time onward, many phenomena occurred that initially frightened him. A frightening encounter. Before becoming a Catholic priest, Father Lorick visited Phoenix for a meeting. At midnight, he woke up to see a woman and her small dog standing at the foot of his bed. Terrified, he screamed. The next morning, he asked the office staff if there had been any incidents involving a woman and her dog at the hotel. The staff confirmed, yes, there was a woman and her small dog who died in a car accident right outside the hotel. In another instance, Father Lorick experienced fear in Ja Lat, Vietnam, when a soul appeared to him. He prayed to God, asking that if souls were seeking intercession, God would handle it directly, because he did not want such encounters. Despite his reluctance, souls occasionally appeared to him in his dreams or visions. Over time, he accepted it as God's will and committed to praying for souls in purgatory. A moving experience at the cemetery. Father Lorick recalled a poignant story about a 17-year-old boy named Tony who had struggled with drug addiction and ultimately took his own life. Father Lorick prayed for Tony at every Mass for a year. About a year later, he was at Queen of Heaven Cemetery to officiate a funeral for an infant. After parking at the back of the cemetery and finishing the service, he walked through the graves to return to his car. Suddenly, he heard someone calling his name. "Father! Father!" Looking around, he saw no one, but as he glanced down, he realized he was standing in front of Tony's grave. At that moment, he clearly heard Tony's voice in his heart. "Father, thank you for praying for me." Tony explained that some souls remain bound to the places where they sinned or suffered, unable to move on. He added, "There are souls who atone for their sins on earth because of the burdens they left behind. They wander in pain, unable to find peace." This encounter deepened Father Lorick's understanding of the suffering endured by souls in purgatory and the importance of interceding for them through prayer. Tony's story and a reminder of compassion for souls. Tony also shared a story that I will never forget. A young girl once saw the soul of a priest without a mouth. Upon investigation, it was discovered that the priest had taken his own life by shooting himself in the mouth. Souls like his desperately need prayers and masses to be freed from their suffering. I have come to understand that praying and offering masses for such souls is not only an act of love, but also a means of helping them find purification and release. I encourage everyone reading this to dedicate a Mass or prayer for the forgotten souls in purgatory, those who have no one to remember or pray for them. Let us help them find light and joy in the kingdom of God. A reflection on St. Nicholas. Tony's story reminds me of St. Nicholas, a saint renowned for his compassion toward the souls in purgatory. In a dream, St. Nicholas encountered a sorrowful soul, a monk named Pellegrino, begging him to offer masses for his deliverance and that of other souls enduring torment. St. Nicholas, moved by the suffering he witnessed, could not hold back his tears. For an entire week, he dedicated himself to offering masses, praying, and performing good deeds for those souls. Through God's mercy and St. Nicholas's intercession, Pellegrino and many others were released from their suffering. They later appeared to St. Nicholas in heavenly glory, filled with gratitude and praising God. Tony's story and the example of St. Nicholas remind us that, whether on earth or in purgatory, we all rely on each other's compassion and intercession. I invite you today to offer a prayer or dedicate a Mass for the souls still waiting for redemption, so they may soon rejoice in the eternal glory of heaven. Let us be instruments of mercy, helping them to experience the light and joy of God's kingdom. Once, I buried a 17-year-old boy named Tony. He had struggled with drug use and tragically took his own life. I prayed for him at every Mass continuously for a full year. About a year later, I went to the Queen of Heaven Cemetery to officiate another funeral, this time for an infant. I parked my car at the back of the cemetery, walked to the funeral area to pray and console the grieving family, and then passed through the graves on my way back to my car. Suddenly, I heard someone calling my name. "Father! Father!" I turned around but saw no one. When I looked down, I realized I was standing in front of Tony's grave. At that moment, I knew it was him calling me. In my soul, I clearly heard Tony's voice. "Father, thank you for praying for me." He explained that some souls remain bound to the places where they committed sins or experienced suffering, unable to move on. He said, "Some souls atone for their sins right here on earth because of unresolved attachments. They wander, suffer, and cannot find peace." Tony also shared a story that I cannot forget. A young girl once saw the spirit of a priest who had no mouth. Upon investigation, it was discovered that the priest had taken his own life by shooting himself in the mouth. Souls like his desperately need prayers and masses to be freed from their suffering. I understand that praying for and offering masses for such souls is not merely an act of love, but also a powerful means to help them find purification and liberation. Therefore, I encourage everyone reading this to dedicate a Mass or a prayer for the forgotten souls in purgatory, those who have no one to remember or pray for them. Let us help them find the light and joy of God's kingdom. Tony's story reminds me of Saint Nicola, a saint renowned for his compassion toward the souls in purgatory. In a dream, Saint Nicola encountered a sorrowful soul, a monk named Pellegrino, who begged him to offer Mass to help him and other souls suffering in torment. After witnessing the agony of the souls in the fire of purgatory, Saint Nicola could not hold back his tears. He dedicated an entire week to offering Mass, praying, and performing acts of charity for those souls. Thanks to God's mercy and Saint Nicola's prayers, the soul of Pellegrino and many others were freed. They appeared to him in the glory of heaven, full of gratitude and praising God. Saint Nicola responded, "I pray that God grants you peace through the merits of his precious blood. As for me, I cannot offer Mass for him tomorrow morning because I am responsible for serving throughout this week, and tomorrow is a feast day, so I cannot celebrate a memorial Mass at the main altar." The soul of the late Father Valerino then cried out bitterly, sobbing, "All right, please come, follow me. I beg you, for the love of God, come see with your own eyes the suffering we endure. Perhaps you will no longer be able to cruelly refuse my plea. I know your heart is good, and you cannot turn a blind eye to the torment we are enduring." Thus, Saint Nicola was led into the flames of purgatory. He saw a vast, endless field filled with countless souls of all ages and conditions, suffering under various tortures. It was terrifying. The souls were crying out in agony, and together they raised their hands in desperate plea, begging Saint Nicola, "Have mercy and help us!" Father Pellegrino then said to Saint Nicola, "Now you can clearly see the pitiful condition of the souls who sent me to you. You are a person who has great favor with God, and we are certain that God will not refuse anything you ask when you offer Mass for us. We firmly trust in God's boundless kindness to free us." Deeply moved by the sight, Saint Nicola could not hold back his tears. He spent the rest of the night in prayer. Early the next morning, the saint hurried to meet the abbot of the monastery and recounted what had happened during the night. The abbot, hearing the story, was equally moved and granted Saint Nicola the privilege to not only offer Mass that very morning, but also for the entire week. Saint Nicola offered Mass for the poor souls suffering torment in the fire of purgatory with great devotion. He also practiced virtues, performed acts of charity, mortified his body, and prayed incessantly for the souls. The saint ate only dry bread, drank only water, and wore a penitential belt as atonement. In short, Saint Nicola lived 7 continuous days of fasting, penance, and prayer. After that period, Saint Nicola was blessed with the grace of seeing Father Pellegrino again. But this time, the monk was no longer in a sorrowful and troubled state. Instead, he was dressed in a beautiful white robe, radiating heavenly light. Along with Father Pellegrino, many other souls were also blessed in the same way. The souls joyfully expressed their gratitude to Saint Nicola and lovingly called him the Liberator. As they joyfully ascended to heaven, they sang Psalm 44, verse 8 in Latin, which translates as, "You have saved us from the hand of the enemy and put to shame those who hate us."